thought it was very cool. And I said, Bam Bam, if you ever throw me into the crowd, make sure you throw me into a bunch of big guys, please. Because he was launching guys into the third row.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Average Superstar TV. I'm your host, Lauren Lepre. Boom! Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. We have a new show for you every Monday. This week, we are back in the wrestling world with one of the icons of wrestling. This guy's worked from everywhere, from the WWF back in the day to every indie you could think of. The guy is still going. But I think we all know him most from the amazing times of E.C.W. wrestling, from the evil heel manager to the manager of RVD and Sabu and more. Bill Alfonso, welcome to the show.
I thought that I'd get that out of the way today. Hey, thanks for having me. I heard you do great. Congratulations on your success, your movie career, and what you're doing. You're amazing. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. And believe it or not, when I was like working behind the scenes in ECW, basically being particular Dan Colwell's help is kind of how that like things got to get done now. Kind of, even though it was only, I think, a half a year of my life. What I learned in ECW about you got to work for it. Things got to get done now. You just can't sit there and spin your tires. That urgency, what I learned in ECW, really catapult what Average Superstar Films is right now. Like I it was like the foundation for me.
Great. And what a place, because ECW, we were on the fly a lot. It was amazing. We didn't know what we would get into. And here now is 30 years later, and we have a cult like following, Lauren.
It's crazy because it's the company that changed wrestling to what it is now, even all the way up to the wrestling fans from the ECW arena echoed to what the WWE's audience is now, because all those chants you're hearing, started at one particular building.
Correct. Right?
Yeah. I hope they get the credit for that. And I was happy to be a part of that for when I was on that side of the fence, because it's amazing. Even when I got into managing and a little bit of wrestling here and there, I think being in the crowd was the most fun. All of it, like you're kind of like, oh, I have to leave this. But
Lauren, imagine how I feel about it. I had a great spot managing, starting off with Taz, and then go with Sabu and RVD. I had a great spot, man. At the ringside seat. Who knew what back then? What we were changing the wrestling business. And I was a big part of it. So I'm happy as hell about that. And I find myself fortunate, and I'm very flattered that the people still recognize me. I'm working every weekend somewhere, and it's all from ECW.
Absolutely. And I think you were a pivotal part of the turn from after when you kind of jumped in right after Eastern Championship Wrestling turned into Extreme. And you were brought in as, the referee that's going to get everything back in order in ECW. I'm just kind of curious.
I just left WWF, and I didn't know anything about ECW. I never worked an indie show in my career. We went from Florida Championship Wrestling with Dusty and Gordon Solie to WCW, working for Turner, then Vince and WrestleManias. And, Vince wants the doctor, his wife, and the two kids at ringside. ECW, the audience was 90% male, ages from 18 to 32 years old. It was crazy.
Just out of curious, so you kind of somewhat answered the question about the ask, but when you first got there, because you said you didn't know much about it, when you got in that building and heard that crowd, were you just like, I'd never seen anything like this before?
Took me a minute because I started in May of '95, right when it was starting to take off. So remember, I just left WWF, so I'm um, a sports entertainment referee, and these guys were hardcore. So Paul Heyman brought me in as a WWF referee, sports entertainment to this. I was anti ECW, man. The people wanted to kill me. I wanted to stop their hardcore blood tables and chairs and all that. So instant heat. People wanted to hang me. And then I was only supposed to come in for 4 weeks and get choke slammed by 911, but my gimmick got over so well that Paul Lee offered me a position there with Taz, and of course I took it, and it led to a 5 year. I was there. We did 23, 22 pay-per-views, and I was on 21 of them.
And you were there right to the door shut.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, crazy. So, I mean, where did Paul come up with the idea? I mean, I'm just curious, when you guys crossed paths, how did he know you could talk? I know, like, because referees, you don't hear them really speak. How did he know Bill Alfonso could also pick a mic up and go?
Well, I have known Paulie since the early 1980s. I was instrumental in his career, him breaking into business, and we remained friends, and we worked together in Atlanta for WCW and all kind of different places. So he knew I had something.
Gotcha. Well, that's great. And when you're there watching these amazing performers, but also you're seeing the hardcore stuff go down. You're seeing people take amazing blows to the head. Were you like, the business need to go this way, or are you a little more concerned about, like, yo, maybe you shouldn't be taking that hard of a hit to the head?
Well, I was playing it by ear, and of course that crossed my mind. But after a few months of it, I grew used to it, and I said, "This is what this company is," and that's why it's getting all these chants and so on. And hey, when I walked in that dressing room, May of '95, I walked in. There was Sabu, Van Dam, Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, Taz. I didn't know one person in that dressing room. Remember, I came from the big companies and worked with Hogan and Sting and Steiner's, all these big guys. I didn't know, and now these guys are big names. Paul Heyman was creating his own stars, which is very cool, and everybody had their deals. Sandman come out with a cigarette and a beer, and Sabu was going through tables, and Van Dam was phenomenal. Man, I didn't know what to expect, and I played it by ear. Thank God I did, because I remained there for the whole 5 years of the company, and it was just awesome. Awesome. I grew with the company.
You certainly did. And eventually you go to manage Taz. When you first met the guy and all that, did you know that you said you're brand new, so you guys didn't know each other? Like, how was that like feeling? Was like, find out you're going to manage someone? You kind of, was it awkward, or was it just like Taz like welcoming it? Like,
no, I think we all just blended together as time went by. We all got close, and we all knew we had something. What we had, I don't know, but we had something, and I was so glad to be a part of it. So was Taz, and so was Van Dam and Sabu to be a part of it. It just blended. It was a natural fit. And I'm pretty good in the dressing room with the guys, so I fit right in. I was well liked, and I liked everybody was so cool, and we all wanted the same thing: success. We all wanted to make ECW work, and what a great motivator Paul Heyman was.
yeah, those you always hear those infamous speeches he did.
Yes, before any pay-per-views or before any big nights, man, Paul Heyman would hit us with these big speeches and stuff. Made us believe we can fly off the top rope and through a table. Made us believe we could, do all these hardcore things, and we did it.
Yeah, and it changed wrestling. Would you say, between obviously the WWF at the time when you're up there, that's a giant corporation, that's a machine, and you've been to a bunch of indies. You said you worked for NWA, WCW. Did you feel the ECW locker room was like its own ecosystem, like how well it was run?
Yes. I sure did. I sure did, because remember I said earlier that there were no big stars there. Now Paul Heyman would bring in guys every now and then, bring in Terry Funk and this guy and that guy for an appearance, but our regular crew was Sandman and Sabu and Tommy Dreamer and Taz, guys you never heard of, and they were building their names as time goes by and successful. Nobody knew Tommy Dreamer in 1995. You know,
No, absolutely not. And even when somewhat, I'd say like people that were with Vince or the other end, like when Raven came in, Shane Douglas, these are people that
right,
they didn't really have the platform to shine. And same thing with Al Snow. I think Paul
right,
like giving the finger to those companies, like you didn't know what to do with these guys. I do.
exactly, exactly.
Same thing with Just Incredible, like straight through. So I thought Paul was great of making names for sure.
He certainly was. He certainly was. The blue meanies and full-blooded Italians, and oh my goodness, it was fantastic. The characters that we developed, or Paul Heyman developed in ECW.
Totally crazy. And so through the years, so after they decide to break you up with Taz, and Taz goes on his own, and they pair you up with RVD and Sabu. I'm
Well,
just kind of curious.
that was on the first pay-per-view, Barely Legal.
Barely legal, yes, which the anniversary is coming up.
Yep. But
Yep.
nobody called it. They thought I was gonna be with Taz forever. And when I switched and we beat up Taz and I went with RVD and Sabu, that was my ticket right there.
So you got to be the, what I'm basically trying to say is you had this plethora of freaking talent here. So you were there for the rise of Taz, from the Tasmaniac to this sawed off monster, and
Right.
then you
Taz,
get the
Taz had several different gimmicks. He was Tasmania, Monkey Boy, this guy, that guy. He never really got over until he became Taz. When
yes.
he became Taz, he was more like himself, you know. Uh, and he got over big time, big time. And congratulations to him now. He's doing really good in AEW. He's got a
Yeah,
great spot there. He's a color commentating, fantastic. And now he's got his kid wrestling hook.
that's great. Yep, I keep up with that on and off. I'm not really into the wrestling world the way I used to be. It was one of those things when the Monday Night Wars and ECW kind of ended at once. I
Right?
felt like it was. I was funny. I was doing indies and stuff until 2004, but I don't know. My love kind of entertainment kind of ran out the window. I missed what wrestling was. When you're now paired up with RVD and Sabu, just out of curiosity.
Who I was just with the WrestleMania weekend. We did the largest WrestleCon in the country. I was there for 3 days. Was RVD and Sabu. We was very successful. Had a great time in Los Angeles WrestleMania weekend.
Got you. And the freeze right there with those two. I mean, RVD right out of the gate, you could just tell that's, in ECW, you knew it immediately. This guy was going to be a star, and probably was, in my eyes, in the top 3 wrestlers that ever lived. Like this straight up, I think he was just that good because no one could do what he could do.
Yeah, he was doing stuff. He had those great thighs. He was super athletic. He mixes martial arts. He's actually a bad motherfucker. He's in real life. He's a tough guy, and to mix that up and put it in his repertoire and moves and stuff, and doing the Van Terminator from Van Daminator from one side of the ring all the way to the other side.
Yep.
Man, that 5-star frog splash. Nobody does it like Van Dam.
Absolutely not. And then on the other end, you kind of an opposite, but just still a different, amazing style of talent, which is Sabu. I'm just kind of curious, when you got paired up with these two and you started seeing this thing gel, were you just like, wow, like, can it get really any better than this?
Exactly. The first night I met Sabu, I told him a story about 1978 when I was breaking into business. One of the first matches I've ever refereed at and got paid. I got paid $90. Was in Lubbock, Texas, refereeing a match between his uncle, the original Sheik, against Terry Funk in a chain match. And the Sheik ended up stabbing me with a pencil. I still got the lead mark right here. And I told him that story, and Sabu and I clicked right away. And we just clicked together great. And remember, he didn't talk, he didn't do any promos. I was perfect for him. I was perfect with my voice. Hey, Daddy Sabu, Tad, we're gonna kick your ass December 22nd at the E.C.W arena. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, so you got to do that 2 to 3 days a weekend with those guys. And
Yes.
what was their like regiment of? Because I look at how hard the ECW guys went to win the audience over. Obviously, there's some people not even here with us anymore, unfortunately. But like to me, I look at it, it's like you played the Super Bowl, and then the next day you got to get up and do it all over again. Like,
Right.
what did they have any particular recipe of trying to basically keep their body going? You know, a lot of ice. Like, I don't like what? Like, what were those guys doing? What were you part of that? Like trying to keep up with, like, yeah, make sure you do this, make sure you do that.
Yeah, of course, we were all team players and all trying to take care of each other and lend a hand when it was needed. Um, and yeah, I coached the guys. Van Dam was his big thing was stretching before and after. That's why he still can go today. Van Dam can still go today. He just turned 50 years old. He believed in stretching, and yeah, we used a lot of ice and uh, heating pads and some medications, and man, it was crazy to keep our bodies going. Not me so much. I mean, I'd get my ass beat. I'd go through a couple of tables here and there, but not like these guys every weekend. You know, it was hardcore concussions and stitches and broken limbs. Man, I seen it all.
God,
Me,
yeah.
I broke several bones. I got titanium from ECW and screws, and I got multiple stitches, and almost bled to death in that famous. Well, people say it's famous 1997 when I had that match with Beulah and almost bled to death. For 7 minutes. It was pretty cool.
Yes, and I will say this guy was sitting in the crowd for that, and I will also say that yeah, I think around then, between that and Born to Be Wired with Sabu's arm, was the only 2 times I watched ECW wrestling. I got actually a little queasy. So,
Well, you know what happened in that match with Terry Funk and Sabu? The guys who put up the ring went to the barbed wire store to get the barbed wire, and there's different grades of barbed wire. There's A, which is not too bad. There's B, which is a little, and then there's C, the tough one to keep the big cattle in there, to get the big prawns. And they bought the strongest, most deadliest barbed wire known to mankind. When they put it up, Paul Heyman says, "Man, you got the killer barbed wire. You should have bought the A one where it wasn't so bad." And the spot was Terry Funk and Sabu going at it, and Sabu threw Terry Funk into the turnbuckle, come charging in, and Terry moves out of the way, and Sabu hit that turnbuckle with the barbed wire, and it caught him on his arm right here, and his weight brought him down and just ripped it about 14 inches long, man, about an inch wide, and it looked like his brains were hanging out. He literally went into shock for 20 seconds. Fonzie, had that crazy look in it. He says, so I ran and got him some tape. He was taping his arm up as he's taking a reverse neck breaker from Terry Funk onto a steel chair. Watch it. It's incredible, man. Incredible. And then we
yeah.
glued together. Uh, so we were stitching him up in the dressing room. The doctor was there stitching him up in the dressing room. He got tired of the stitches. He said, Fonzie, go to 7-Eleven and give me some super glue. Now, then they didn't have now they have medical grade super glue.
Yes.
But back then, I went to the 7-Eleven and bought the toxic super glue, and that's what he used. It's a miracle he didn't get some type of toxicity or something in his system.
Yeah, he's it's safe to say his immune system works a lot in his career.
Oh, man, it was an overtime on that, man.
Yeah, yeah. I remember actually being a little white watching that when that happened. Because the
Right.
crowd were loving it, but you heard the constant O's. Like when we first got a good look at that bicep tear, like, wow.
Yeah, you weren't the only one that got queasy. A lot of people in the audience left the building. They couldn't take it.
Yeah, I remember keeping my big boy pants on. Like, yeah, this is amazing, but I'm kind of like, I'm like, just breathe.
What we were seeing a lot of times, especially that barbed wire match, we couldn't believe what we were seeing, and it was like that almost every ECW arena show. Something spectacular. We were trying to outdo the last show, so man, it was some spectacular, crazy, hardcore, really extreme stuff that these guys were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember, I think it was the first Stairway to Hell match at the arena. I believe this. You might remember this for me, but Sandman hit Sabu with the cane in the jaw. And I remember him pointing at the jaw, and you
Broke
had to go get him athletic tape.
Broken jaw. We had to tape him up. He had literally a broken jaw. It was going like this. His jaw was clicking and stuff. So we taped him up during the match, and he continued. It
Yeah, I
was
know. What a warrior.
when they say Sabu was suicidal, homicidal, genocidal. That's actually pretty true.
Yeah.
He didn't care. That's why he can barely walk today. He can't wrestle anymore. His body's so broken up from that. And I see these young guys. I do indie shows and different shows and Comic Cons and conventions all over the country, and I see these guys going through tables and taking these hard chair shots to the head. And I preach to them a little bit. I don't try
Good.
to out of it. They're grown men, but I tell them, hey, that's what Sabu did, and Sabu can't walk right now. So loosen up and have a long career.
Yeah. No, I think that's great that you do that because
I do preach to these kids and try to steer them around. And they all come up to me and talk to me. They want my opinion. Fonzie wants my mess because I'm been around so long. Been
yeah.
around.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to the fans of ECW, I know I brought it up earlier about the chants and everything changing.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but just I think they. And I know I could include myself because I was there for half the run, but I think they just changed wrestling like forever.
No doubt that ECW changed the business. Changed the business. You know who was a big fan of ECW, which was Vince McMahon's son Shane. Loved ECW. That's why he got his dad interested in it, and that's why he ended up, buying us out. And I think he floated us $1 million to keep going. Say, I'm not sure exactly the figures, but say ECW was bringing in $14 million a year, but we were spending 15 to make the 14. So it was tough. We had no corporate sponsors until later. Then we got on TNN, and we started getting sponsors and stuff. So we were just making it by the skin of our teeth. And thanks to Shane McMahon loving the ECW, Shane was kind of hardcore, and his dad got interested, and I think he lent the company $1 million to keep going for another year, which was very cool. And then buying the company, of course.
Yeah, so I guess we could stick right there, but since you brought that up, I'm just kind of curious because it's the last year, checks are bouncing, everybody's starving. Just kind of curious, what's going through your head as far as do I try to jump ship, but what if we get saved? This is where I want to be versus damn, them bills keep stacking up. Like,
We all wanted this company to work so bad. We were sacrificing some of our home life and putting things on hold for a while. We were stretching that dollar. I was taken care of. I was real close to Todd Gordon, which was the founder of ECW. And he made sure I always got paid. So personally, I was never really behind on all that stuff. But a lot of guys were, Lauren. A lot of guys were suffering and sacrificing to try to make this thing work and continue. We all loved it so much and we wanted it to work, but unfortunately, towards the end, we couldn't survive.
did Paul Lee personally call you when he said it was over?
Yeah, I was close to Paul Heyman. Remember, I've been friends with him since the '80s, and um, and I was going through Todd Gordon more. Todd was steering me. Uh, it was, our hearts were broken when we closed the doors. I didn't do the last pay-per-view because it wasn't in the budget. Well, I think the pay-per-views in New York, and of course, I live in Tampa, so it just wasn't in the budget. It was a low-budget pay-per-view, but it worked, and I just wasn't on it. And I knew that was the last pay-per-view ECW was going to do. I knew that was the end. We were all hoping and had our fingers crossed and was praying to God, please let this company survive. But prayers weren't answered.
It's so weird because you guys were now getting away from being at the ECW arena every 3 weeks. You were kind of going like every 5, maybe even 6 weeks, because you were finally getting to all these towns that were hungry for it. And
Right.
it looked like you had full buildings and the merch table. And I understood
We were
there's so many.
We were a small company. We were selling out, but we were going to small venues that would hold 2,000 or 3,000 people. But then we hit big venues like the Burt Flickinger Center in Buffalo, which held 8,000 people. We were drawing 4,000 or 5,000 people. It was incredible. We'd go to Los Angeles and draw 2,000 people. Everywhere we went, we were selling out, but small buildings, man. It was incredible. Yeah, just incredible, man.
And like I just still find it so weird because when something goes out of business, it's because there's no one's buying the product, but they were buying the product at a. To me, when you were coming back to the ECW arena, even though you had to do that because it's home, that was almost like downsizing because you're playing venues that are pulling in 4,000, 5,000 people. So
and crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. Would you say?
Oh, Lauren, that I was a part of that. It's not, and I'm still relevant today. I still look. I'm going to show you my book. My book. I'm booked every weekend for the next 3 months somewhere in the United States, and it's not because I was one of the better international referees. Where I refereed the famous Ric Flair Fujinami match in Tokyo, 65,000 people. New Japan and WCW joint show. And I refereed in Madison Square Gardens and WrestleManias. It's not because I was a great referee that I'm relevant today. I'm relevant today because of ECW. Yeah. That's what's getting me booked. That's what's getting me booked. They want the Fonzie from ECW. And of course, they pat me on the back. Oh, Fonzie, you were great in that match when you were a referee. But oh my God, when you and Taz, you and Van Dam, you and E.C.W, that's what's keeping me relevant. Not that I was one of the best referees in the country.
Yeah. I mean, it changed everything for a lot of people, and I'm glad you're still being wanted and still active. And that's great that you're 3 months booked up.
Yes, unbelievable.
Crazy.
Unbelievable.
I want to go back to just what your opinion was. So when you get the ECW and particularly the arena 95, 96 was like super hot at the ECW arena. And then later on, I'll give them credit where credit's due. You get Queens. You get like a second embassy up there of crazy fans.
Right.
Would you say at the later years that the Queens crowd was more rowdier than the ECW arena crowd in the later years?
Well, I think all those crowds adapted to the ECW style because that's what they have seen on TV and stuff, and they picked it up, man, and they were like they were competing. The cities were competing against each other. Queens was competing against Philly, and Philly was competing with Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh was competing with LA and New Orleans and Texas. I mean, we were touring the United States, man, and the crowds were all the same.
Great.
With cats and all the cool stuff. And when New Jack jumps off the balcony and puts the guy through Louis Spicoli through a table, it's crazy. And all the incidents with the cages and the barbed wires and the fire and the blood and the chairs and the guts and the angles. Unbelievable. Just crazy, man. It was fantastic. And you're right, it did change the way that this business was run. Like I said earlier, Vince McMahon wants the doctor, his wife, and the two kids at ringside. ECW wanted his clientele was 19 to 30 years old, 90% men. It's crazy.
Do you think the fans, especially more today with the internet, do you think the love of wrestling is second compared to being I'm smarter than you?
Good question. I don't know. The ECW fans claim to be, they would call themselves smart marks.
Yeah.
They love the business and they love to be entertained, but they, knew it was a work. They knew it was entertainment, but we didn't give a fuck. We were doing our job, and they loved it. The more crazy stuff we gave them, the more they liked it. You know.
The ECW fans, especially at the arena, were so crazy. I think you guys could have all left the locker room and beat everybody up in the crowd, and they'd still come back 3 weeks later.
Oh, the crowd wanted to be a part of the show, and actually they were, Lauren. The
Yeah.
crowd was part of the show. We adjusted our TVs and our programs and our angles according to the crowd. We knew that we would get this reaction in Philadelphia, and we get a different reaction in Queens, or a different reaction in Los Angeles, or New Orleans, or Florida was a big for us. Here in Tampa Bay at the fairgrounds in Miami Beach and so on. It's crazy. Fort Lauderdale at the War Memorial sold that out. What a crowd, man! What a crowd!
Absolutely. And I know you just brought up New Jack jumping off of buildings and stuff, but I know you got a million of these, but still got mine from
Oh wow!
the 2001. So I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but Vic Grimes lived 2 doors over from my apartment in Ben Salem. So when he came here for his run, safe to say, me and him were attached to the hip, and I was
killed him. New Jack almost killed him.
Yeah, so I actually went to. He drove, and I went as a guest to that first fall in Danbury, Connecticut, and I was at that, and I was also.
I forgot about Danbury. Wow.
Yeah. So when they took that spill, Vic still drove home, and I was right next to him and stuff. It was crazy because I call Vic like the Herman Munster of ECW. Like you could drop a piano on his head, and he what happened?
He was a tough guy. I liked Vic. He was perfect for ECW. Perfect, man. Willing to sacrifice his body, and he did. He did. We all were sacrificing our bodies. Look at Sabu. I mentioned earlier. Sabu can barely walk because of what he did. We were sacrificing our bodies for the cause, ECW.
Absolutely. Do you remember that night, the fall? Like, do you remember anything that happened before or after that match, like between Vic and New Jack, how that was going to go down?
I know New Jack was a little frazzled about something, and they talked very little before the thing. And I remember them clutching each other and just diving off that. I don't know if it was in Philly, or I just keep thinking Philadelphia up on that where.
Damn, this was the pay-per-view Living Dangerously at Danbury, Connecticut.
Danbury, and they did that big fall, man. I thought they both were dead.
Yeah.
Literally, I said, somebody's got to have some severe injury off of that, but they came out of it. I mean, they both got hurt. Vic got hurt, but
Well, Vic was up quick.
Worked a week later. They were back working. How's that possible? How was that possible? Motivation from Paul Heyman.
Yeah. So did you see New Jack actually go to the hospital, or was he just back in the locker room and kind of up and going?
Up and going back in the locker room. Somebody went to the hospital.
I believe it was New Jack, because obviously it wasn't Vic, because I could tell you I drove home with him that night.
Yeah. New Jack got beat up, man. And I'm proud of Vic for doing what he did. He stood up to New Jack was a little bullyish in the ring.
Yeah.
He was a little bullyish in the ring, and you can't be that way, but he was. And take my hat off to Vic, man. He was a tough guy, man, to go through all that shit. Didn't back down from New Jack one bit.
So when you would be in the locker room with them too, whatever they be chopping at each other, Vic was not intimidated by the guy at all. Is what you're saying?
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
don't think so at all.
Yeah. Do you think the fall itself was like a miscalculated thing? Because, you know, obviously I have some experience in the ring too, but I don't see how, if you're New Jack, why you would pull a 400-pound man on top of you. That's not,
Right.
that's it.
I can close my eyes and see that right now. It
But
was
what I'm
incredible.
calling that is that's not the proper way to bump. That shouldn't have been the way you should have
Right.
went.
How, either one cared about the end result as long as it looked spectacular, and it did. We're talking about it 25 years later about that incident.
Yeah.
And both guys, I love New Jack, and I like Rick Grimes. He was great to me. He was perfect for E.C.W. Rick Grimes was perfect. Good example for E.C.W. like Balls Mahoney and Axel and Ian Rotten. Those guys in the middle.
Yeah.
They were the top guys were Sabu and Sandman and Tommy Dreamer and Taz RVD, and the middle guys were Vic Grimes and these guys and these guys. We all had a incredible, man. How do we do that, Lord? I don't know. How do we do that?
It would have been great if and I obviously was talking about that during this time, but if Vic Grimes could have not have been on loan and been actually part of E.C.W. as like an official member, oof.
Right.
Yeah. You could have saw that making something really good out of him, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Vic was a ball player, man. He was perfect for ECW. Perfect.
Was your friend? Did you have like a good friendship with New Jack the entire run, or was he kind of just?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I was there from the time New Jack came in to till the end of ECW. Yeah, I was good. You got to remember, I was there from '95 until the doors closed in 2001 or whatever it was. And I met all the guys that came in and out, and from Dr. Dusty Williams to Bam Bam Gordy to all these big names that came through there. Steve Austin, Brian Pillman, Rick Rudy, everybody came through. Now, everybody wanted to come to ECW. Everybody wanted to make an appearance. We were doing so good. Everybody was dying to come in. That's why we had such big talent come through there.
Yeah.
Nails, everybody came through there. It was incredible. And then the girls, Beulah and Francine, as I see Francine all the time at these different events, the Comic Cons and so on. Conventions, she still looks great.
Dawn Marie did really good there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, I don't see her too much. I haven't seen her, but I don't see Beulah either. She's not on the road for some reason. I think she's married to Tommy Dreamer, got kids, and happy, with her home life. And but I see Tommy all the time.
Crazy. Good. All right, Fonzie. So I'm going to do into a segment what I call 10 rounds.
Okay.
So these are questions about music, film, and pop culture, in a few wrestlings in here, but it's kind of like a fun thing. If any of these questions don't pertain to you, just take a pass, but I think you're going to be fine with it. This is just a fun segment of the show. Then I want to take a tour of your place that you're talking about there and show us everything.
I'm just in my office, and I got some cool pictures and a couple of shirts and stuff that you guys would.
Well, that's coming up next. But Question number one: what's your favorite band of all time?
Damn, Led Zeppelin, Allman Brothers, Marshall Tucker, ZZ Top, Kiss. Guys I grew up with, the Beatles, of course, in the background here. I grew up with the Beatles. I saw them on Ed Sullivan when I was 6 years old in 1968 or whatever it was. Pretty cool, man.
Cool. What's your favorite album of all time?
Damn, Stairway to Heaven. Let me just put the Stairway to Heaven is. That I've seen Led Zeppelin and I've seen the Rolling Stones. I took my daughter on vacation. We went to Switzerland, and I got tickets to sold out show, Rolling Stones in the stadium there where they play soccer. Incredible. Sympathy for the Devil. Love that song. I love that album. It
Sweet,
was a
sweet.
voodoo tour. It was a voodoo tour. And I seen them live and in
Voodoo
Switzerland,
Tour was like 91. Yeah. Okay.
right? Yeah, that's about when I took my daughter on vacation. I said, "Big kid, where you want to go on vacation? Switzerland or Las Vegas?" And she said, "Dad, I want to go to Switzerland." So we got tickets and we went to Switzerland for 10 days. Pretty cool.
I dig it. Who's your favorite actor of all time?
Damn, there's so many. I like Tom Hanks, Dustin Hoffman, James Cagney. Uh, I like the gangster movies. Damn it. I like all the new guys, Matt Damon and all these young kids, Leo DiCaprio and uh, James Cagney. I like James Cagney.
Sweet. You named him twice. We'll just say he's your number one. So what's your favorite movie of all time?
Damn, I guess maybe the first Godfather.
Excellent, excellent choice. Switch. We'll back into wrestling. From your perspective, for how long you've been around, who was the misused wrestler in your eyes?
Misused, who I could have thought they did better. The office could have used them better.
Yep.
Damn, so many of them, man, that didn't get a break. They can work their ass off. And we got to remember, Lauren, there's probably 1,000 wrestlers that are badass, but the problem is there's only 150 contracts in WWF and 150 contracts in AEW. So, damn it, I wish the old territories were still in existence.
So do I.
We outgrew it. And, so there's only two companies to work for. Misused. Damn it. There's so many. I don't know. That's a tough question. Sabu.
I think without a doubt, outside of Paul Heyman's hands in New Japan, yeah.
Right, because he was a superstar in E.C.W. and a superstar in Japan, but they did not use him correctly in WWF or in WCW. They had the opportunities. They missed the boat, but they weren't ready for him. Remember, those two companies are family entertainment. We're talking hardcore, so they didn't know what to do with them. So
I just think they were pulling people like Raven and Shane Douglas, and even when they pulled Sandman up, just because they want to just bring in new blood. But I think a lot of the problems with Raven and Shane Douglas when they left is one thing that made ECW shine is Paul gave them time to develop the characters with these long interviews, and you can't do that in a live show. It's like go out there for 40 seconds.
Right.
Yeah. So I felt bad for him on that because some people will be like, what are you talking about? This guy's not good. I'm like, they're not giving him the right platform.
Correct. You're 100% right, Lauren.
Yeah. So what was your particular favorite moment in ECW if you had to take one with you to the grave?
I appreciate what me and Beulah did. I appreciate that barbed wire match. I appreciate Van Dam and Bam Bam Bigelow, where Bam Bam dropped the strap, the TV strap to Van Dam in Buffalo, New York, and the bird flicked into the center and put Van Dam over it. And he held the belt for a little over 2 years, 1 month, 14 days, and 37 minutes. Maybe that was my damn. There's so many. That's a very hard question. But if you ask Paul Heyman to name one of his favorite matches in ECW out of the hundreds and thousands of matches, he's in the Beulah Fonzie match.
Yep.
It was the top 3 matches that he enjoyed.
Yep.
And 2 non-wrestlers, and that's putting me over. So I was very happy to hear that him say that.
Speaking of, you just brought up Bam Bam Bigelow. I remember at the ECW arena,
the best man in the business.
Yes. Oh gosh, yes.
The best
big man for sure. At one point, when he was launching people in the crowd after Spike Dudley,
yes,
you took the ride, blowing a whistle the entire time. You just tell me what that experience was like, because you're going, You had that all planned out?
Thought it was very cool, and I said, Bam Bam, if you ever throw me into the crowd, make sure you throw me into a bunch of big guys, please, because he was launching guys into the third row, second row, not just over the rail under the first. He was launching guys, and I'm small. I was about a buck 65, 165 pounds back then, 160 pounds. So, and Bam Bam was a beast. He was literally a fucking beast. And when he launched me, man, I was taking it for the ride. You're right. I did blow my whistle, man. It was pretty cool.
And
Not a scratch on me. Not a scratch on me. I didn't break no bones, nothing that night. I got lucky, man.
you did, and you didn't hit the floor. They picked you up and started surfing you, and you were still blowing your whistle the
Yeah.
entire time. Kudos for that, friend. That was a great run.
Thanks. Thanks, Daddy.
What's your favorite outside of the U.S. to perform between being a
Tokyo?
Yep,
I've been there. I think I've been to Japan 13 times, and all for short times, like the Flare Fujinami in 1992, I think it was 65,000 people at the Tokyo Dome. Incredible. I was there for 2 days. We went over there with E.C.W. and then Hiro Matsuda, Japanese wrestler. He was part owner of the Florida Wrestling Company back in the 80s, where I broke in and started for. He would be the middleman between the Japanese and American offices and sending guys back and forth and sending the Japanese young guys like Muda, like the great Muda would come in 1982 and work for a year in Florida wrestling. And then Hiro Matsuda sent me to Japan quite a few times to referee matches and stuff. So Tokyo is one of my favorite cities to work with. People are incredible. The 65,000 plus people, I thought it was amazing. The indoor building, and they picked me to referee the main event, which was pretty cool. And they made the cover. I refereed Giant Gonzalez, the tallest athlete on the planet. They built him as 8 foot and made the cover of the Japanese magazine. This is a Japanese magazine. So, I mean, that's pretty cool to be on the cover.
Yes, it is. Awesome, dude. Right.
There were so many magazines, all the Bill Apter and sports, wrestling stuff. And it was pretty cool. In 1997, E.C.W. was finally competing with WWF and WCW, and to some point, and they picked the manager of the year, which was me. They picked, and I was competing against all these guys in WWF and WCW, and they picked out of E.C.W. I found that flattering that they gave that to me. It was pretty cool. I got the plaque in 1997, Daddy, manager of the year, Bill Alfonso.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Like, really happy with all the success that you had. Thanks. If there's one thing from any era of your life between all the companies, is there anything? I realize that all these companies come up with, like, here's what we got for you. Is there something you've always wanted to do that you just wish, if you could wish it to come to life, like an idea that you wish you could have done? Do you have one?
I wish they would have carried my managing career after E.C.W. to WWE and let me work there and get those big paydays. When I worked for them as a referee, I made 6 figures. When I worked WCW as a referee, I made 6 figures. So I would have liked for Vince to let me spend a couple of years managing somebody like RVD or somebody in WWF, which didn't happen, and make that good money and continue my career. But it didn't happen, and I'm still relevant today, though. Thanks, E.C.W. Thanks to all the cool fans. Oh, WrestleMania! This is a couple weeks ago in Los Angeles. We did that big WrestleCon. I had so many people come to my booth to see me, take pictures with me and Sabu. All E.C.W. people from people all over the world, from England, Australia, said, "How the fuck do you know Fonzie? You're from Australia." "Oh, mate, we love E.C.W. Now we watch on Peacock and this and that. We still got a new fan base.
It's great. It's going to live forever.
It's got a cult-like following, and I'm one of the coach guys.
That's right, brother. Kudos to that. You guys are all going to live forever. I mean,
I can't believe the reception we got in Los Angeles.
Great.
It was cool, and not because I sold a lot of merchandise and all that. That was cool, but just to get recognized by all these people was very flattering, Lauren. Very flattering, very cool.
When E.C.W. did fold, I know you said you wish you got up there to Vince. Was there talks in the works at all, or was it this kind of?
I did some work. I did here and there for them, but they just didn't have a spot. Remember, there's only 200 spots, and they had 400 guys. You know what I mean? I was one of the guys that, didn't make the roster, but I was okay with it. But they used me. Vince told me personally, he said, "Fonzie, we're going to use you as much as we can, but we got our contract guys, you know what I mean, that we're using. If we can use you in the summer or this and that, or some special events," which they did, and they used me for reunions and stuff like that. They used me quite a bit, and Vince paid me really well.
I'm glad that anytime any of us get to shine up there, I cheer for you guys. I love it. But I mean, between all of you guys all had to kind of be a little bit of a letdown of the invasion angle, right? Because I think that's just something they could have made. They could have dragged that for years. I don't know why.
Right.
For starters, why they have to combine you with WCW? You could have did one and then the other.
Right, brother. I was wearing with that big invasion stuff. I was working with Jerry the King Lawler. I was wearing WWF hats to the ring and holding up banners. It was crazy, man. It was pretty cool. Pretty damn cool, man.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you had a great, amazing era, but like you said, you're booked the next 3 months. So, what are you doing now? You're in a company called E.C.W. at the moment, right?
Well, I'm in multiple companies. Like we just did Sabu and I, Van Dam did a big show in Los Angeles, a big Comic-Con convention. I just got back Friday. I was in Newark, New Jersey, working for Think Signatures. We did a virtual signing. It was pretty cool broadcast. And this Saturday, I'm in Kissimmee, Florida, for CCW's Coastal Championship Wrestling. They run a couple of shows a month in Florida, and I work for that company. I'm there. It's right next to Orlando's, 2 hours from my house. The following week, I'm in E.C.W. Cleveland. That's a company I've been working for off and on for the last 3 years. I was managing their champion, Matthew Justice, and I just turned on Matthew, and now I'm managing Matt Cardona, who is they call him the indie god. He's, got millions of followers on his social media. He's a big shot, big time, badass, good looking guy, can work his ass off. They got me managing him, so I'll be with him. I'm doing the 26th of April, I'm doing, Vice TV.
Yes.
Out of the ring. They're flying the camera crew in to Tampa, and they want to interview me in my home, set up cameras and make up people the whole 9 yards for 2 hours. They're flying in to do that on May 26th, Vice TV. They're paying me handsomely, and they want me to talk about my career. They want me to talk about Sandman. They want me to, I'm not talking any negative shit about guys ODing in the dressing room and shit. I'm just, I'm not going to bring, they have enough negativity on that show. But I got that coming up. And then, let's see, I'm in St. Louis coming up May 6th. I'm in Fargo, North Dakota.
Great place.
May 11th. They're doing great business. I worked an angle with one of their managers, and I'm going to have a Beulah Fonzie match with this kid May 11th in Fargo. No DQ, hardcore. I'll probably get busted open. I'm doing a show in Washington, D.C. I'm acting as their commissioner. I get a phone call 3 months ago from the owner of AWA, Don, great guy. He said, Fonzie, would you be interested? We're a young company. We would love for you to come in and be the gimmick director of the commissioner of our company. And I said, well, fly me in, let's see what happens. And I flew in and it worked perfectly. Now I'm back there in May coming up, and they're going to use me every show. So that's another outlet. I'm booked all the way through June. I'm in, we got that. There's a big convention. It's Riverside Convention. They have it every year in Jacksonville. Big time. Look it up on the internet. I'm there for 2 days. I'm in Williamsport, Pennsylvania coming up. I'm just booked and it just repeats itself. That E.C.W, they run 2 times a month in Florida, Miami, and somewhere else. I work those shows. I work for John Thorne, AIW, once or twice a month in Cleveland area. And then shows all over the country, and then the conventions and so on. Pretty cool.
Before you give us a little bit tour of your office there, could you just give any advice to anybody who's trying to get into business right now these days?
Don't give up. Don't give up. As long as you're enjoying it. Listen, if you're working indie shows and you don't have a contract with Vince or AEW, you won't be able to make a living. But you'll be able to make a few $100 on weekends. You're living your dream. Don't give up, because here's a problem. There's 1,000 of you guys, but there's only 120 contracts, for you to make a living. I wish the territories would open back up, but that's not going to happen. Live your dream, have fun, take care of your body, and enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Wise words. So give us that tour, my friend. Let's see your goodies.
All right. Well, we're in my office in Tampa. I just have memorabilia. I just have some cool pics. You like that Beetle picture, but there's a picture of Francine all in her low cut fucking titties hanging out, beautiful, tagging, graffiti me underwater. Can you see that?
Yes, I could. Yes, we could.
I love that pic. I get a collection of, I've been around the world, and when you go to Hard Rock Cafe, you buy a T-shirt. I buy the leather jackets. I got one from Berlin, Tokyo, London. Got the new Fonzie shirt just released.
Where could anyone get that at?
Any of the shows that I come to, I usually bring a few, or they can contact me on social media. Here's that Riverside Convention coming up June 10th and 11th. RiverCityConvention.com. Look it up, and there's a ton of guys, big stars are going to be there. Some of the companies that I work for, AIW, CCW shirts. But here's what I like is the pictures are worth it. Here's my backstage pass from WrestleMania 9.
Wow.
I refereed The Undertaker and Giant Gonzalez. There's me and Taz.
Yeah, I remember that interview. Yep.
Yeah. There's my Pro Wrestling Illustrated 1997 Manager of the Year. Pretty cool. I'm in the Hall of Fame with some of these smaller companies, LPW Hall of Fame. I got some dope ass pictures of Giant Gonzalez choke slamming me and at WrestleMania. I just got some cool pics and stuff. Here's one of my favorite pics right here. That was 1982. Andre the Giant stepped on my foot in 1982, and it still hurts. No, that's true.
I believe you.
He cracked the bone, the top bone in my foot, and my foot still swells up every now and then. So I wear a size 10.5, but I buy 11s because Andre the Giant stepped on my foot and it still hurts.
That's like a horse stepping on you.
Right? He was weighing about 450 pounds at the time. He didn't mean to, but he stepped on it. I like this picture too. We were in High Times magazine, me and Van Dam and Sabu.
Yes.
Championship pot smokers. And, hanging out with Van Dam and Sabu, I got to smoke pot. You know what I mean? That's their gimmick. Me and the American Dream, Dusty. Speaking of Bam Bam, that's in Japan. That picture's in Japan. Bam Bam Bigelow, the best big man in the business. There's me and my boys, Van Damme and Sabu. Hey, check this picture out, Lauren. That's the tall. Hulk Hogan's tall. I'm not sure. Look at how short I am compared to Hulk Hogan, and look at Hulk Hogan compared to Giant Gonzalez.
Wow.
When
So that's
20,
Hogan in the middle. It doesn't look big at
yeah,
all. Wow.
unbelievable. That was on the set of his TV series, Thunder in Paradise. That was a pilot. I was on the
Dude,
pilot.
Hogan does not look big at all there next to him.
Right?
Wow.
Look at that. Giant
Crazy.
Gonzalez was the tallest athlete on the planet at that time. The only guy who came close to him was the Chinese kid who played basketball for the Houston Rockets. I think his name was Ming.
Yao Ming.
Yes, and Giant Gonzalez was taller than him. So, and I got that was pretty cool. And I got a lot of perks hanging out with the Giant Gonzalez. Like I was his personal assistant for 3 years. I got a phone call from Ted Turner himself and said, "Hey Fonzie, would you take Giant Gonzalez to the baseball game because the Braves are winning World Series left and right, and we want you to sit in our box with me and Jimmy Carter would sit, and the camera pans over to it and say, hey, the Braves are doing so good, and it brings out the tallest athlete on the planet." And they
Yeah.
don't say and Fonzie too. I just happened to be sitting next to the Giants, so that was pretty cool. Some of the perks. That's Tokyo, Van Damme, Sabu, means just some cool picks, some memorabilia. Harley Race gave me a duplicate belt of, when I refereed a lot of his matches in Florida back in the day, and Harley Race presented me with that belt, which was pretty cool. Thanks, Harley. Gone now, forgotten.
The
Just some,
toughest man that ever lived.
yeah, tough guy. It's just some cool picks. There's Joey Styles and Fonzie. There's Fonzie and Giant Gonzalez and Harvey Whippleman. There's the night I almost bled to death with
Yeah.
Beulah. So if you ever want me to come back, we'll be coming right here. Hey, Lauren, if you ever come to Tampa area, you make sure you call my ass. I'll take you out for some a couple of lunches, some great Cuban food. We got great Cuban food here, and I'm half Cuban. Um, so I got a lot of good connections. So please, if you guys come to the beach or spend any time in Florida, we got football. We got hockey. We got a hockey team. We got basketball right down the street in Orlando. We got everything. We got a baseball team, which is doing fantastic. The Rays. We're loaded with sports, beaches, beautiful girls, great food. Tampa's a fantastic city. We got about 3.5 million people in the Bay Area. I wouldn't live any other place.
Awesome, brother. Well, if I'm ever down that way, and I'm sure I will be, I will definitely reach out. We will meet up.
Personally invited. My wife and I would love to host you for a dinner.
Absolutely, friend. Well, with that, Fonzie, I'm going to thank you so much for coming on to the show. And where can anyone reach you for any booking or any contact info?
I'm all over social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. You can message me. I'm not hard to find at all, man. Call me anytime, guys. Call me. I'd love to come do shows. I'm just signing up with the Cameo thing where you do shout outs. Just sign them. I got action figures coming out with Rush Toys. Heels and Face. I got 3 different action figures coming out with 3 different companies, and they're all gonna hit around the same time. So keep an eye out for my action figure, which hopefully you guys like and pick one up.
Sweet. Well, with that, I will say thank you for everyone who checked out Average Superstar TV this week. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. New shows every Monday. I hope the E.C.W. fans really enjoyed this show. Fonzie, thank you so much again for coming on to the show.
Thanks, Daddy. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the interest. Thanks for the thousands of fans that listen to your show. And thanks for everybody that's giving me support all these years. And don't forget, Lauren, I'm dead serious. You come with it anywhere in Tampa Bay, or you make sure you call me. I owe you the wonderful dinner. You're a great guy. You're good for our business. You love the business just like I do. And thank you for what you do.